Hi, welcome to Lies and Secrets channel. We hope you will have fun with us. Enjoy watching. This morning I discovered my wife's bizarre affair. What really happened will leave you speechless. Before we dive in, make sure to like this video, leave a comment and subscribe to the channel for more fascinating and shocking stories. The sun had barely risen, cast in a soft golden glow through the sheer curtains of our bedroom. I was up early, a habit I'd picked up from years of early morning runs, but today something felt off. The house was too quiet. The usual morning sounds of Luna bustling in the kitchen or Arthur's playful barks were conspicuously absent. I padded down the hallway, the plush carpet muffling my steps. As I neared the kitchen, a strange unsettling feeling crept up my spine. There was a silence, heavy with something unspoken. I pushed the door open, and the scene before me froze my heart in my ***T. Luna was there, her back to me, her movements too intimate, too familiar. But it wasn't with me. It was with Arthur, our dog, his tail wagging, in a way that seemed almost complicit. Luna. My voice was a whisper, a mix of shock and disbelief. She turned her face flushed, eyes wide, with a mix of fear and something else. I couldn't place Aiden. It's not what you think, she stammered, pulling away from Arthur, who looked up at me with those innocent, unknowing eyes. I stood there, the weight of what I had just witnessed, crashing down around me. What is it? Then my voice was steady, but inside a storm was brewing. She reached out her hand, trembling. Can't explain it, I've tried to stop. But it's like something inside me just can't resist. Her words were a confession, a plea for understanding, but all I felt was a cold, creeping dread. The silence that followed was thick, filled with the unspoken truths of our marriage, the secrets she had kept hidden. I turned away the image of her, and Arthur seared into my mind a puzzle piece that didn't fit into the picture of the life I thought we had built together. As I walked out, the questions began to swirl. How long had this been going on? Why hadn't she told me? And most hauntingly, what did this mean for us, for our future? The answers I knew would unravel the very fabric of our relationship, leaving me to wonder if love could survive such a revelation. I found myself outside the cool morning air, doing little to clear the fog of confusion in my head. The neighborhood was waking up, cars, starting, birds chirping, but all I could hear was the echo of Luna's voice, her plea for understanding. I walked aimlessly, my feet taking me down familiar streets, past houses where life seemed so normal, so untouched by the chaos that had just erupted in mind. My mind replayed the scene over and over each time, trying to find a different explanation, a less disturbing truth. But the reality was stark, undeniable. I stopped by the park where Arthur and I used to play, fetched the sight of other dogs and their owners, laughing and carefree, twisted something inside me. Sitting on a bench, I pulled out my phone, my thumb hovering over Luna's contact. What would I even say? How could we possibly move past this? The phone felt heavy in my hand, a symbol of the connection that now seemed so fragile. I remembered our wedding day, how she looked in her dress, the vows we exchanged, promises of love, trust and fidelity. The word now tasted bitter. A text from my brother Mark popped up. Hey, how's it going? Haven't heard from you in a while. I stared at it, the normalcy of his message, a stark contrast to the turmoil in my life. I typed out a response, deleted it, then typed again, not great. Can we meet up later? I needed someone to talk to, someone who wasn't part of this bizarre reality I'd just stepped into. Maybe Mark could help me make sense of it, or at least provide a distraction from the relentless thoughts. As I walked back home, the house loomed ahead, a place that was supposed to be our sanctuary, now a reminder of betrayal. The front door was slightly ajar, just as I had left it in my haste to escape the suffocating atmosphere inside. Stepping back into the house, the silence was different, now charged with an impending confrontation. I could hear Luna in the kitchen, the clink of dishes, the sound of water running. She was trying to act normal to perhaps erase what had happened with routine. I leaned against the doorway, watching her for a moment. "We need to talk," I said, my voice low but firm. She turned her eyes red, her expression a mix of guilt and fear. "I know," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry. Aiden, I didn't want you to find out like this." The conversation that followed was strained, filled with half-truths and evasions. She mentioned therapy, past struggles, but it all felt like excuses, reasons to justify the unjustifiable. "I need some time," I told her, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. "I need to think." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand. I'll stay with my sister for a while." As she packed a bag, I watched, feeling detached, like I was observing someone else's life. The future was uncertain, our marriage hanging by a thread, and all I could do was wait for the storm to pass or for it to sweep everything away. I sat in the living room, the ticking of the clock on the mantelpiece, the only sound break in the heavy silence. The house felt empty without Luna, her absence, a stark reminder of the chaos that had unfolded. I stared at the wedding photo on the wall, our smiles frozen in time now, a cruel mockery of what we had become. The doorbell rang, pulling me from my reverie. It was Mark, his face etched with concern as he stepped inside. "Aiden, what's going on?" "You sounded off on the phone." I led him to the couch, the words catching in my throat. It's about Luna. I caught her with Arthur." Mark's eyes widened, his confusion palpable. "Arthur, as in your dog?" "Yeah." I said, the word heavy with the weight of my shattered reality. "She said she couldn't help it, that she's been dealing with this issue for a while." He sat back, processing the information. "Man, that's intense. Have you talked to anyone else about this?" I shook my head. "Just her mother. She mentioned something about therapy, but it's back again. I don't know what to do." "Mark, how do you even begin to process something like this?" Mark leaned forward, his voice low. "You need to take care of yourself first. Maybe talk to a counselor, someone who can help you navigate this." "And what about Arthur? What are you going to do with him?" The question about Arthur hit me like a punch. I hadn't even considered what this meant for him. I don't know, he's innocent and all this. But every time I look at him now, the conversation shifted to logistics, the practicalities of separation. Mark suggested I might need legal advice to protect myself and figure out what to do with the house with Arthur. The idea of lawyers and legal battles felt like another layer of betrayal, a formal acknowledgement that our life together was over. Later, as Mark left, he squeezed my shoulder. "Take your time. Aiden, whatever you decide, make sure it's what's best for you." Alone again, I wandered through the house, each room echoing with memories, the kitchen where we cooked together, the bedroom where we shared dreams. Now all felt like stages set for a drama I never wanted to star in. I decided to visit Arthur, who was staying at a local kennel. The drive was quiet, my thoughts, a tangled mess of anger, confusion, and an underlying sadness for what we had lost at the kennel. Arthur greeted me with his usual enthusiasm, his tail wagging, oblivious to the storm he was at the center of. I knelt down, petting him, feeling a mix of love and resentment. "What are we going to do, buddy?" I whispered, more to myself than to him. The kennel owner, Mrs. Henry, approached, her face kind but curious. "Everything okay, Mr. Aiden? You've been looking a bit down." I hesitated, then found myself opening up, not about the details, but about the turmoil. "Just going through some personal issues." She nodded, understanding in her eyes. "Sometimes pets can be a great comfort and tough times. Maybe spend some time with Arthur. See if it helps." I spent the afternoon with Arthur playing fetch, walking through the park trying to find some semblance of normalcy, but every laugh, every bark was tinged with a shadow of what I had seen. As evening approached, I returned home, the house still and cold. I sat down with a glass of whiskey, the amber liquid mirroring the setting sun. Outside, my phone buzzed with a message from Luna. "Can we talk?" I want to explain more if you'll let me. I stared at the message, my finger hovering over the reply button. Part of me wanted answers, closure, or perhaps a sliver of hope. But another part feared what more she might reveal. Feared that understanding might not bring peace, but more pain. I set the phone down, unresolved. The night stretched ahead, long and uncertain, much like the path I now had to navigate alone. The weight of decision loomed large. Not just about my marriage, but about who I was, what I could forgive, and how I might begin to heal from a wound so bizarre and deep. The house was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that amplifies every creak and whisper. I sat in the dim light of the living room, the only illumination coming from the street lamp outside, casting long shadows across the floor. The whiskey in my glass was half gone. The ice cubes long melted, leaving a diluted amber pool that mirrored my thoughts. Luna's message still sat unanswered on my phone. Her words "I want to explain more" echoed in my mind, each syllable a reminder of the betrayal that had shattered our life together. I knew I needed to confront this, to face her, but the fear of what she might say, of what truths might further unravel our marriage, held me back. The clock on the mantelpiece ticked away, each second countdown to a decision I wasn't ready to make. I stood up the room, spinning slightly from the alcohol, and walked to the window, peering out into the night. The street was deserted, the world outside, seemingly at peace, oblivious to the turmoil within these walls. I turned back to the room, my eyes landing on the wedding photo again. The smiles. The promises now felt like a distant dream, a mirage of what could have been. My heart ached with the weight of the decision before me. Could I ever look at her the same way? Could I ever trust her again? The phone buzzed again, this time a call from Luna. My hand hesitated over the device, the vibration sending a shiver through my arm. I answered, my voice steady, despite the storm inside. "Hello, Aiden. Please. I need to see you. I need to explain everything." Her voice was urgent, tinged with desperation. I closed my eyes, the image of her with Arthur flashing behind my lids. "We're neutral ground, the park where we used to walk, Arthur, tomorrow. At noon." The park, a place filled with memories of laughter and love. Now tainted. "Okay," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. The call ended, and I was left in the silence. Once more the decision was made, but the dread of what tomorrow would bring was palpable. I knew this meeting could either be the beginning of healing or the final nail in the coffin of our marriage. Sleep was elusive. That night I tossed and turned, haunted by visions of our past, of the life we had built and the life that was now crumbling. The morning came too soon, the sun piercing through the curtains, a stark contrast to the darkness within me. I dressed mechanically, each movement a step closer to the confrontation. The drive to the park was silent, the radio off, my thoughts, my only company. The park was quiet, the usual weekend bustle absent, as if the world knew to give us space for this pivotal moment. Luna was already there, sitting on our bench, her back to me. She looked smaller, fragile, as if the weight of her actions had physically diminished her. I approached, my steps heavy, the gravel crunching underfoot, announcing my arrival. She turned, her eyes red-rimmed, her face pale. "Aiden," she started, her voice cracking. I sat down, keeping a distance, a space between us, filled with the ghosts of our past. "Explain," I said, my voice cold, devoid of the warmth that once held for her. She took a deep breath, her hands wringing in her lap. "It started after the miscarriage," she began, her words slow, each one seeming to cost her. I was so lost. Aiden. The therapy helped for a while, but then it came back. This need to feel something, anything, when I felt so numb. I listened, my heart, a stone in my ch***t. Her words were a confession, but they felt like excuses, reasons to justify the unjustifiable. And Arthur. I asked, the name bitter on my tongue. He was there, always there, offering comfort without judgment. "I know it's wrong, Aiden. I know." But in those moments I wasn't thinking. I was just feeling. The silence that followed was heavy, laden with the gravity of her admission. I looked at her, really looked, trying to find the woman I married beneath the layers of guilt and shame. What do you expect from me now? Luna. Forgiveness. Understanding. I don't know. She whispered, tears streaming down her face. I just want you to understand that. I'm sick. Aiden. I need help. Real help. This time I need to see you. I need to explain everything. Her voice was urgent, tinged with desperation. I closed my eyes, the image of her with Arthur flashing behind my lids. Where? Neutral ground, the park where we used to walk. Arthur, tomorrow at noon. The park, a place filled with memories of laughter and love, now tainted. Okay. I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. The call ended and I was left in the silence. Once more the decision was made, but the dread of what tomorrow would bring was palpable. I knew this meeting could either be the beginning of healing or the final nail in the coffin of our marriage. Sleep was elusive. That night I tossed and turned, haunted by visions of our past, of the life we had built and the life that was now crumbling. The morning came too soon, the sun piercing through the curtains, a stark contrast to the darkness within me. I dressed mechanically, each movement a step closer to the confrontation. The drive to the park was silent, the radio off, my thoughts, my only company. The park was quiet, the usual weekend bustle absent, as if the world knew to give us space for this pivotal moment. Luna was already there, sitting on our bench, her back to me. She looked smaller, fragile, as if the weight of her actions had physically diminished her. I approached, my steps heavy, the gravel crunching underfoot. Announcing my arrival, she turned, her eyes red-rimmed, her face pale. Aiden. She started, her voice cracking. I sat down, keeping a distance, the space between us, filled with the ghosts of our past. Explain. I said, my voice cold, devoid of the warmth that once held for her. She took a deep breath, her hands wringing in her lap. It started. After the miscarriage, she began, her words slow, each one seeming to cost her. I was so lost. Aiden. The therapy helped for a while, but then it came back, this need to feel something, anything, when I felt so numb. I listened, my heart, a stone in my ch***t. Her words were a confession, but they felt like excuses, reasons to justify the unjustifiable. And Arthur. I asked, the name bitter on my tongue. He was there, always there, offering comfort without judgment. I know it's wrong. Aiden. I know. But in those moments I wasn't thinking. I was just feeling. The silence that followed was heavy, laden with the gravity of her admission. I looked at her, really looked, trying to find the woman I married beneath the layers of guilt and shame. What do you expect from me now? Luna. Forgiveness. Understanding. I don't know. She whispered, tears streaming down her face. I just want you to understand that. I'm sick. Aiden. I need help, real help. The air between us was thick with the unsaid, the park around us, a silent witness to our crumbling marriage. I stood up, the decision clear in my mind. Now I can't forgive this, Luna. Not now, maybe not ever. You need to get the help you're asking for. But I can't be part of that journey. We're done. She looked up at me, her eyes, a storm of emotions. Aiden, please don't. I'm sorry. I cut her off, my voice firm yet breaking. I need to protect myself. And right now that means letting go. I turned and walked away, each step heavy with the weight of finality. The park, once a place of joy, now held the echoes of our end. As I reached my car, I glanced back. Luna was still on the bench, a solitary figure against the backdrop of our shattered dreams. Driving away, I felt the finality of my decision settle, and the road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. I was moving forward alone. The life we had built was over. But perhaps in time I could find a new path, one where trust and love could flourish again. Untainted by betrayal, The park faded into the distance through my rear-view mirror, and with it the remnants of a life I thought was unshakable. The drive back was a blur, my mind replaying our conversation, her tears, the finality of my words. The weight of my decision was both liberating and crushing, a paradox of emotions swirling within me. I pulled into the driveway, the house looming ahead, now just a structure devoid of the warmth it once held. The silence inside was deafening, a stark contrast to the chaos of my thoughts. I walked through the rooms, each one echoing with memories now tinged with sorrow, the kitchen where we laughed over burnt dinners, the living room where we'd watch movies, our bedroom where dreams were shared in the quiet of the night. I stopped at the wedding photo, our smiles frozen in time, a testament to a love that couldn't withstand the storm with a heavy heart. I took it down the frame, feeling lighter than the burden it represented. I placed it in a drawer, not out of sight but out of the daily reminder of what was lost. The next few days were a haze of legal consultations, packing, and the logistical dance of separation. Mark was there, a steady presence, helping me navigate through the paperwork, the division of our shared life into his and mine. Arthur, still at the kennel, was a question mark in my mind, a part of our life I couldn't yet decide. On one evening, as I sat alone, the quiet was almost unbearable. Dear friends, thank you very much for watching. Leave comments, put likes, share with friends, and subscribe to the channel.